everyone and welcome back to my channel. As the title of this video suggests, I went to Japan. I've been hyping it up and talking about it on a few videos up to the point we went away, and we finally got to go. It was absolutely amazing. So this video is kind of just to talk about what we did on our trip, places we went, the things that we saw, the Pokemon related stuff that we did, because I'm a big Pokemon fan, if you can't tell. And going to Japan has been an absolute lifelong dream. So we went to Japan. I've got some footage that we'll post as we go. But yeah, we want to talk about what we did, what we saw, and yeah, looking forward to going back. We went to Japan at the end of May into the middle of June, which is supposed to be, you know, warm but not too warm, just to find that summer had come a little early. It was very warm, it was very humid, and it rained quite a lot. We had I think 2 typhoons while we were out there, which is a little bit unseasonable. It was a little bit early, we were told, but it didn't hamper anything we had. We had a wonderful time regardless. So we landed at about 11 AM. So we had a flight from Heathrow about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the flight takes about 13, 14, 15 hours depending on sort of tailwinds and that sort of thing. I think our flight took us about 13 and a half hours to get there, and I think 14 and a half to get us back. So we landed at 11 o'clock in the morning, which was quite, I think, a good time in terms of, you know, the food that you get on the plane and when you sleep on the plane, or try to sleep on the plane as it were. It was a direct flight from Heathrow into Haneda Airport, and then from there we got through security, which takes quite a while because you have to give your thumbprints and you have to obviously give your photo and they take a photo of you and make sure that everything matches. But what we did that nobody else on our plane seemed to have done is that they have an app called the Visit Japan web, where you can fill in all of your immigration details before you go, so you don't have to fill in the form on the plane. And when you get through get through security, get your baggage, the people that filled the paperwork out had to go in one queue, and the people that filled in the Visit Japan web before they flew literally scanned their QR code that the app gives you and were put through another queue that there was no queue. It was literally us. So I very much recommend you do that, because we got straight through and we were at the front of the queue for getting our JR pass. I will say that probably by the time this video comes out, it's only a couple of months until they massively increase the JR pass prices. So for us it was a given, because we were going to so many different places, that getting a JR pass was beneficial. We got a 2-week pass. But the prices are gonna, I think, like nearly double or something crazy. It may not be beneficial to get a JR pass anymore, so make sure you're checking the prices before you book one. You have to book it before you fly. Literally they give you a voucher in this country that you then take and give to the stand, so you're not buying it out there. So the only advantage to buying one once October hits is that obviously you're paying that money before you fly, rather than having to carry that money around. But make sure you're double checking how much the JR pass is going to be for where you're going to go, and how much the train tickets would be otherwise, because it's not going to be such a great deal anymore once October hits. But for us, we went on the Shinkansen about half a dozen times, just over half a dozen times, so it worked out as being cost effective for us. And because we got through security so quickly, we were at the front of the queue to get our JR passes. You can be waiting there for 2.5 hours if you're at the back of the queue. So thankfully we only had to wait about 40 minutes. Wasn't too bad at all. We got our JR pass. We picked up our pocket Wi-Fi. Because there was 2 of us, it made more sense to get a pocket Wi-Fi, which is just basically, it looks like a mobile phone, and as long as you charge it every day, it acts as your Wi-Fi, and then you just connect your phone to it like normal Wi-Fi. We went down that route rather than getting SIM cards, because obviously we'd have to get 2 SIM cards. It didn't make much sense to do that way. I think that's a more beneficial thing for people that are travelling alone. That SIM card probably works a lot better. But we got the pocket Wi-Fi. It cost about £50, I think, for the 2 weeks that we had it, and it worked perfect. It even works on the subway, so that's brilliant. You know, I can't fault the pocket Wi-Fi. And you pick it up at the sort of the exit to the airport, and you drop it off in the exact same place you picked it up. Nice and simple. We'll definitely do that again. So from there, we got the monorail from Haneda Airport into Tokyo. So you basically go from Haneda Airport to a station called Hamamatsucho, and then you get the metro from Hamamatsucho into Tokyo. It's like 2 stops after that. And then we got to our hotel. So the first place we stayed at for a couple of nights in Tokyo was the hotel that is the Pokemon Hotel. We stayed in there for 2 nights, just while we found our feet before we travelled on to other places. I definitely will stay there again. The Pokemon Hotel, there's a couple of them in Tokyo and a couple in Kyoto, and I think one in Osaka as well. We stayed in the one in Ginza, and it was lovely, absolutely lovely. It's beautiful, it's spacious. A lot of hotels, especially in Kyoto and Tokyo, they don't have a lot of space because, you know, space is at a premium, so you don't get a big hotel room, whereas this is an apartment. And yes, it's a little bit out of the way, the Ginza one. They're not all out of the way. The Ginza one was a little bit out of the way. But it's spacious, and it has a kitchen, and it has like a full-size bathroom and all of that sort of stuff. So if not being claustrophobic is what you're after, that's probably a good hotel for you. A lot of them are a lot smaller. So definitely recommend it, It was good to have a place you could sit and eat as well. Because when the other hotels we stayed in, there was just literally the bed and that was it. So you basically just sat on the bed, which was okay. But definitely the Pokemon Hotel was very much beneficial in that sense. So we stayed there for a couple of days. The first thing we did was, on the day we landed, we had a trip booked to the Pokemon Cafe. It's hard to get tickets for the Pokemon Cafe, so we thought we'd start by trying to get tickets for the first day we'd be in Tokyo. And luckily we were able to get tickets, and it was good actually, because we were starting to feel tired by the time our booking was. It was about 6 o'clock, our booking, and we were starting to flag a little bit, so it kind of gave us that little bit of a pick-me-up on the first day. So we went to the Pokemon Cafe, we went to the Pokemon Center that's in Nihonbashi, that's next to the Pokemon Cafe. So that was our first experience of a Pokemon Center. We ended up going to about, I think, 5 or 6, you'll see as we go through the video. And I think, though it wasn't the biggest, it was the cutest. It was nicely laid out, and I really liked that. So we went round, and the Nihonbashi one very much focuses on plushies. It's got a whole plushie room in the middle, and then it's got the Pokemon Cafe on the other side of the floor. And the Pokemon Cafe, basically you get given a ticket, you get given an iPad to order the food, and it's in English as well as Japanese. And you can order your food, and you basically got until half an hour before the end of your slot to order as much as you want. You don't have to order it all in one go. You can order again after the fact. So that makes it quite easy. You can order like mains, and then if you're really feeling it, you can order a dessert as well. So that was really cool. And then at some point in everyone's slot, Pikachu will come out and do a little dance for you, which is really cute. It wasn't as busy as I thought it was going to be, but it was a Monday night, so maybe, you know, considering all the slots were taken, it was not busy at all. But it was a fun experience. The food is hit and miss. None of it tastes bad, but it's for the price you have to pay for it. It's not the best food in the world, but you're really paying for the experience. And you can also buy a few things like the forks and the spoons and the cups and stuff that you eat while you're there. You can also pick up a version yourself to take away as well, so that's quite cute, I thought. So that was fun. That was day 1, and then we went back to our Pokemon Hotel and basically stayed the night. The second day was our only full day in Tokyo at the start of the trip. We came back to Tokyo obviously to fly out, so we spent a little bit of time in Tokyo at the end of our trip, but we only had one full day in Tokyo before we moved on, and we spent that day in Ikebukuro. So we got on the JR Yamanote line and went from Tokyo Station to Ikebukuro, where there is a load of retro game stores, a load of anime stores and that sort of thing. It's a very shopping-y, district-y sort of place. And if you go to Sunshine City in Ikebukuro, there is another Pokemon Center, but there's also a little place called Pokemon Sweets, which is a little cafe. It's a little takeaway cafe, so you can't eat anything there, but it does waffles and fruit shakes and things. So it was doing lots of Paldea related things, so you could get like a starter flavoured orange or grape drink, which we got, and Pikachu waffles and things like that. It was really cute. So yeah, that was really nicely designed, and it had like a Garboda rubbish bin, which I thought was really cute. And then from there you could walk across sort of like the floor where they had loads and loads of Pokemon figurines into the Pokemon store. That one was a bit bigger, But what I did find with all the Pokemon stores is, other than the statues and things like that that they have to commemorate like each of the stores, they didn't have very much different into sort of merchandise. They had a few things different, but nothing that was very store specific. It's just that's what the merch that they had that day. So it used to be when these Pokemon stores opened that there would be a specific, related thing to that store that you could only buy in that store. That seems to have gone away now, and basically what you can get in that store is what you get in that store, and you could potentially get that elsewhere, so you don't have to necessarily go to every single store. There is one exception to that, and that is each of the stores as you leave, apart from I think the one in Shibuya. We couldn't find the one in Shibuya. Every store other than the one in Shibuya has a machine at the end. So if you've grown up in the UK, and it might be true for other countries, when I was a child there was always these machines that would press a penny into a different design. There's machines that do that, not with a penny, just with a random piece of metal that's already in the machine, but basically you put 300 yen into a machine and it will press the design of a Pokemon, and they differed depending on which store you went to. They differed. I'll pop a photo of them up here so you can see what some of them look like. They differed depending on which store you went to. So if you're looking for some commemorations and things like that of the stores that you've gone to, that's a thing that was different at every store. And that was very cute. We ended up getting them pretty much every store we went to, which I like. I've got a little collection now, and if we're going to go back to any different ones, we'll be able to carry on the collection, which is really cool. But in that store, it's nice and laid out, and what made that store special is outside of the exit, it has a whole wall of gacha, which is the little capsule things where you put the money in and you don't know which one you're going to get. They had a wall of Pokemon ones, and there was a couple of evolution related ones, and we managed to thankfully get the Eevee that I was going for very, very quickly. It's really cute. It's really nice to be able to do Pokemon gacha, because when you go to actual gacha places, finding the Pokemon ones is quite difficult. They don't have like a Pokemon section. It's literally you have to weave your way through hundreds of gacha machines to try and find the ones you're looking for. So it was nice to have a whole wall of Pokemon related gacha, so you could pick and choose which one you wanted to do. That was really, really cool. From there, we spent the rest of the day looking at sort of used sort of manga, DVDs, that sort of thing. We went to a couple of book-offs and places like that, looking for some retro Pokemon cards, looking for some video games, that sort of stuff. And that's how we spent our big day in Tokyo. On the third day, we went to Setagaya, which is basically a little town, suburby, just outside of Tokyo, where if you're a Studio Ghibli fan, it's where they have a little, it's called the Cream Puff Factory. It's a little cafe, a little takeaway cafe, where they make Totoro-shaped cream puffs in different flavours and things like that. It's only about a 30-minute train journey outside of Tokyo, and it's definitely worth the trip. It's slightly out of the way, and you do have to do one train swap, but it's very worth it. It's so worth it. There's not a queue to get in. Basically there's two establishments in the same building, and when we got there was a massive queue, and we thought, oh, we're gonna be here a while. But it turned out the queue was for the second floor, which was like a little cafe that's unaffiliated with the Studio Ghibli cafe, which is on the first floor. And if you're just getting takeaway from the first floor, you can go straight in, get what you need, and come straight out. So it was nice and easy. We got a couple of cream puffs and some cookies, and then there was just a little park near the station that we sat down just to enjoy them, and it was really, really pretty. From there we left Tokyo behind, and we went to what is probably my favourite part of the trip. We got the Shinkansen from Tokyo to a little town called Hakone. Hakone is in the mountains near Mount Fuji, and on a good day you do get a very good view of Mount Fuji. We did not travel at a time when there was a good view of Fuji at all. We didn't get to see Fuji at all, but that's okay. It's a rare thing to be able to see Fuji, so we weren't expecting to see it, but Hakone is one of the best places to get a chance to see that, other than sort of like the lake towns and that sort of thing around Mount Fuji. Hakone is high up in the mountains, and you can get a rope way up to the top of the volcano, where you can get a good view of Fuji on a good day. But even just for itself, take Fuji out of the picture, Hakone is absolutely beautiful. It's famous for the shrine that sits in the water. But what I thought was really, really brilliant is that You have to take an old sort of, it's called the romance car. You have to take these old-fashioned trains to get there. It's absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And one of the trains you have to take if you're staying at the top of the mountains where we were, is you have to take a train that literally zigzags up the mountain, and so you have to watch the train driver go from one end of the train to the other as he's literally taking the train backwards and forwards up the mountain, and it's so beautiful, absolutely beautiful. We stayed in a ryokan, an old-fashioned Japanese inn, up in the mountains with our own private onsen on the balcony, and it was just stunningly beautiful. It's definitely a place that I would definitely recommend going. We're definitely going to go back next time we go to Japan. That's, we're not going to try and redo as much as possible, but that is something we're definitely going to do again, is go to Hakone. From there we headed back on the Shinkansen, but we headed down to Kyoto, where we spent the rest of our trip. We spent the majority of our trip in Kyoto. And some of the things that we did in Kyoto were, we saw some of the sights. We went to the Fushimi Inari, the famous I think 2000 Torii Gate Shrine. That was really, really beautiful. It gives you a massive, beautiful scenic view over the whole of Kyoto. Some of the other highlights of the trip were, we went to Monkey Mountain, where you can go up in Arashiyama to see the monkeys that live at the top of the mountain. They are angry. They are very angry monkeys. But you go into a hut at the top of the mountain where you're kind of in the cage, and you can give them some apples or some nuts and things like that. And they're pretty aggressive, but outside they don't recommend you interact with them, but you can walk around, and they're walking around as well. So if you're afraid of monkeys, they're going to get pretty close. So might not be a good place to go if you're scared of monkeys, because they do get close. And it's also a very big trek up the mountain. When I say it's Monkey Mountain, it is actually a mountain you're climbing up. It's a small mountain, but it's still a mountain, and it takes about 40 minutes to climb up it. And a lot of people say, it's an easy hike. It's not. It's definitely not, especially not in the heat of summer. It was hot. We had to stop a few times on the benches going up, because it was just a very, very tiring climb. But it was worth it. Once we got to the top, it was absolutely beautiful. Arashiyama is also a place where you see the bamboo forest. We got there really early, and there were very few people there. But once we started walking our way back through the bamboo forest, we could tell it was getting really, really busy. So I would recommend, if you're going to go to Arashiyama, which is just to the southeast of Kyoto, get there early. Do the bamboo forest first. We got there about sort of 8:30, and that seemed to be a good time to come. We did all of that, and then we came back through the street between the bamboo forest and Monkey Mountain. There's a big, long shopping street where you've got lots of little cafes, you've got lots of little souvenir shops and things like that. Absolutely beautiful handmade wooden decorations and things like that. Absolutely stunning. There's also a Miffy bakery if you like Miffy. That was just so cute. And there's a place you go across the bridge towards Monkey Mountain, and there's just this amazing sort of fast flowing river that you can sit by and just have a snack or a drink or some ice cream or something like that, and just watch the world go by. It's just such a peaceful place, Arashiyama, so it's highly recommended. That was a beautiful place to visit. One other place that we went around Kyoto was Nishiki Market. Very touristy, very popular, but still worth it. It's one of those places where it's the most popular place in Kyoto for a reason. It's basically this massive shopping street full of food. It's a street food street. It's covered over, so the day we went, it was absolutely hammering it down with rain. So it was great to go there, because even though it's outside technically, it was undercover. So we stayed quite dry, and it was good to just wander down and see what food they had to offer. It's very authentic Japanese street food. My husband had a whale of a time, but my favourite bit was, there's a shop called Konomonja that makes soy milk donuts. Absolutely stunning, absolutely stunning. From there, we spent most of our time in Kyoto, wandering around, seeing the sights, that sort of thing. But we also did a few day trips. One of the day trips we did was to Osaka, where we went to Dotonbori Street, where we went and saw the sights. Went to Osaka Castle on a very, very hot day, but it was absolutely beautiful. We went to the Pokémon Center in Osaka, and the Nintendo store that's also in Osaka. It's inside a department store, and it was rammed to the point where we left and came back later on in the day because it was just so busy. So the Osaka one, it's big, it's very, very big, but it's busy, so just bear that in mind. I mean, we went on a Sunday, I believe, which probably didn't help with how busy it was. A lovely place to visit, but probably not one. We are planning to go back to Osaka. Probably wouldn't go to that Pokemon Center again because it was just too busy, and you had to wait a very long time. There was no stairs, so you have to wait a very long time for the lift, unfortunately, but that's okay. If you're interested in going to see the Pokemon Center, it is a good one. I just thought there were better ones. Osaka Castle, on the other hand, absolutely stunning. Again, a lot of steps to walk up. One thing that I will take away from Japan is there's a lot of walking, which you kind of know, but at the same time it's the steps that really get you. It's not the walking itself, it's the amount of stairs you have to climb. Going up and down in the subway, because obviously if you've got your JR pass and your Suica, you're going on the train a lot. There's a lot of stairs. Going up and down places and walking around, there's a lot of stairs. There's not a lot of slopes and things like that, it's stairs. So bear that in mind, because you don't think that 20,000 steps a day is that bad until 10,000 of those were steps. So bear that in mind. But Osaka Castle is like 8 floors of stairs. It's great, it's beautiful, and the view is so worth it again, but 8 floors of stairs was tough. That was Osaka. Osaka is beautiful. I highly recommend visiting Osaka. I highly recommend giving it a couple of days as well. There's so much to do in Osaka. Trying the okonomiyaki was amazing, and there was just a lot to do, but we only had one day in Osaka. Probably will spend more time in Osaka in the future, but for one day we did the big landmarks, and that was really, really fun. Another day trip that we did was to Hiroshima, which I highly recommend anyone that hasn't been to Hiroshima and is a bit of a history enthusiast. It is worth the visit. I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but you see a perspective that, especially in the UK, you're not taught that perspective, so it's definitely worth a visit. It's a very poignant trip, but it's definitely worth it. The other sort of highlights of going to Hiroshima are we got to try both styles of okonomiyaki. So there's Hiroshima style okonomiyaki and Osaka style okonomiyaki. Very, very different, as it turns out. We much prefer the Osaka style, where it's all mixed together before it's grilled, whereas Hiroshima style is kind of all piled on top of each other in layers. We definitely preferred it all mixed together because it tastes very, very different. But yeah, both were very tasty, very heavy as well, so very delicious food. And Hiroshima does have a Pokemon Center as well. It's a very small one, but it's near the tram stop, so basically you have the dome where you go see all the history stuff. I think 2 stops back on the tram between the history bit and going back to the station. It's like 2 stops. It's really, really, really easy to either walk it or get on the tram and literally go 2 stops and you're there, basically. Nice and easy. That was a very, very small Pokemon Center, but wasn't very busy, which was nice. It seemed to focus a lot on the snacks. So if you like snacks, Hiroshima is a great place to get some Pokemon themed snacks. From there we spent a day going to the Studio Ghibli park. So if you are a Studio Ghibli enthusiast, there's quite a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff out in Japan, and I know it's pronounced Studio Ghibli, don't come for me in the comments. It's just, as a child you were raised calling it Studio Ghibli because you watched it on Channel 4 and that's what they called it as well, so you kind of get used to it. It's like Rayquaza and Rayquaza. Everyone knows it's Rayquaza, but everyone calls it Rayquaza. Don't come for me. But we went to the Studio Ghibli park, and I have some thoughts about the Studio Ghibli park. Probably go into it in much more detail in a different video perhaps. But I think for foreign tourists, now is not the time to be going to that park. It's not expensive, but it's hard to get tickets as a foreigner, and you can only go to one part. There's 3 parts of the park, and currently foreigners are only allowed to go to one part of it, which is the busiest bit, and the bit that foreigners, it's not a foreigner only section. Everybody can go to the Grand Warehouse, but foreigners can't go to the other 2 bits, which is, I think it's a My Neighbor Totoro themed bit and a Whisper of the Heart themed bit. You can't go there if you're a foreigner. They check your passports, they check your tickets, that sort of thing. So you can only go to the Grand Warehouse. And I don't know if it was because it was school trip season, because everywhere we went there was loads of school trips. And we obviously going in May/June, I think that's school trip time for kids maybe, but the Grand Warehouse was packed with children, as you would expect, but it was a Wednesday. And the Grand Warehouse is not big enough for the amount of people that it lets in. So we only stayed about 90 minutes ourselves. There was some really good bits. It has an exclusive short film, which was actually really, really cute. And it was really good. The concept's really good. I like the park for what it's gonna become, but at the moment, for how far from it's basically, if you're staying in Kyoto, you basically have to get the Shinkansen kind of halfway back to Tokyo in essence, and it takes about 2 hours to get there. For the level of difficulty to get there, there's not enough yet for foreigners. I don't think. They're building at the moment. You can see Howl's Moving Castle being built over in like a secluded foresty section, so you can tell that they're making waves. I think wait, if you're planning to go to Japan a few times, maybe that's something you skip for now, and wait until they've opened some further bits that you can actually go to. That's probably going to be my recommendation. But yeah, it was a nice trip. I just wish there was a little bit more for it. And then the only other day trip that we did, we went to Nara Park. So we went to Nara to see the deer, as you do. We went to see the temples and that around Nara. Nara deer are aggressive. They are they like to bite. Not that it doesn't hurt, but if they know you've got crackers, they're not patient. They do bow, but unlike what we were told, like my sister went 10 years ago and she was like, they bow and then you give them a cracker. They don't. If you've got crackers, they're impatient, and then they bow after the fact. So you give them the crackers, and when you've got no more crackers, they're like, oh, thank you. But they were very cute. They're very calm. They're not fighting or anything like that. They're very calm. They just sit in a park, do what they want, clearly walk through the traffic whenever they like, because the traffic drives so slow, because it's obvious that the deer they do whatever they like, which I think is quite funny. But it's such a beautiful town to visit, not just for the deer. I mean, the deer alone are worth going to Nara. There's lots of old buildings, there's lots of old temples. It's very pretty, and obviously you've got a few sort of things that are up and coming in Nara, including the famous mochi place, where they do like mochi demonstrations and things like that. There was a film crew setting up to film it, like a professional film crew, when we were there, so we were like, not staying around for that. But it was really pretty. The mochi is interesting. I think it's an acquired taste, I would say. It was very savoury, which is a bit unexpected, but I think if you like that sort of thing, if you like soybean powder and that sort of thing, I think you'll like it. It's just, I like sweet things. From there, we did go to the Kyoto Pokémon Center. The Kyoto Pokémon Center was probably my favourite one. It's very well laid out, it's very nice and organised. It's a little bit more hard to get to. It's near Nishiki Market, and again, it's not in a department store, it's in a building, but it's very well signposted how to get there. Unlike some of the others where you kind of have to try and work out where it is, it's very clearly signposted for the Kyoto one. And its feature is a Pikachu wearing a kimono and holding an umbrella. It's so cute. It's probably the nicest one out of all of them. It's so pretty, and it's very well laid out. I really liked that one. We ended up going there twice. I think other than the Nihonbashi one, I don't think we went to see any other ones twice other than the Kyoto one. The Nihonbashi one was because we had 2 appointments to see the Pokemon Cafe, so you kind of had to. But the Kyoto one, we went back just to see, just before we left Kyoto, if there was anything more that we wanted, and it was really pretty. From there, we headed back to Tokyo for the last sort of 4 days of our trip, and we really just spent time sort of going around Tokyo, going to Asakusa, seeing all of the sights, that sort of thing, and then we went to Akihabara to look at the retro game store, do some arcades, that sort of stuff, and we also went to Shibuya because Shibuya has a very big Pokemon Center, which is the one with the Mewtwo. the Mewtwo statue, which was a really, really big one, but it's again very, very busy, a bit like the Osaka one. Shibuya one is very, very busy. We had to queue because we went on a Sunday. You had to queue to get in because the Shibuya Nintendo store is on the same floor in the same entrance, and you have to get a ticket to go to see the Nintendo store at the moment, but you all have to queue in the same queue to get into the building. So it took a while to get in, but once we were in, it was all fine. We got our tickets to go see the Nintendo store, went to the Pokémon store while we waited for our time slot, and then from there went to the Nintendo store as well. Very nice, very pretty, but very, very, very busy. We then, took our time. We went for a wander around the park and went to Harajuku, that sort of thing. But the big highlight was going to Shibuya to see all of the Pokemon stuff, which was really, really cool. We also spent some time in Shinjuku. We went to sort of some arcades and stuff in Shinjuku. Went to see the big cat billboard, the 3D billboard. That was really funny. Too many adverts though. Too many adverts on your 3D billboard. I just want to see the cat. I don't want to see hello to adverts. But that was really, really cute. So yeah, it was really, really, really nice. And then we ended off our trip. We went back to the Pokemon Cafe because we didn't want to take around any sort of merchandise and things like plates or cups or anything that we bought. We didn't want to then be taking that around for our whole journey. So we went back to the cafe. We got 2 slots for the cafe, and then picked up some sort of merch to take home with us from the cafe specifically. And then from there, we got the train back to Haneda Airport. But what was really good is we had an early flight to go home. We got an 8 o'clock flight, but we stayed overnight in the hotel that is literally in the airport. So you go into the airport, you go past all of the booking in, checking in desks, and then the hotel is literally just in the corner. So you're literally where you need to be at the airport the next morning. So it's not like it's outside of the airport and you have to then get a bus or something in or cross the road or anything. It's literally there. You walk into the actual airport, you drop off your pocket Wi-Fi because the airport obviously has its own Wi-Fi, and you go to the hotel, spend the night in the hotel, get up at 4 in the morning, and you get your flight. It was really, really convenient, and I definitely think that's a good thing to do if you don't want to have the stress of getting across Tokyo early in the morning. I highly recommend. It's not the most comfortable of hotels, but it's convenient, and it allowed us to just literally get there late. The night before our flight, we went and had a Moss Burger, which, by the way, underrated. Moss Burger is great. Had a Moss Burger and then just got back to our hotel, sort of sorted out all of our stuff, and then flew home. Jet lag, more interesting than I thought. You end up being awake at like 2 a.m. for like a week. It's really, really weird, but it was fun. It was an absolutely beautiful trip. So that's what we did. Hopefully you've been enjoying the pictures that we've been putting up here as we've gone along. I've got a few tips to end off this video. Number 1, if you are going in the summer months, anything after April, be prepared that you're going to need an umbrella. You're going to need hand towels and things like that. You can easily pick them up in Japan, and we did that. But if you are buying anything to use in Japan, you cannot have it tax-free. Japan has this system where if you spend over, I think it's something like 5,500 yen, which is about £50. If you spend over that threshold, you can have the tax taken off by showing your passport. But if you do that, they will seal the bag and you are not meant to open it before you leave Japan. So if you're buying things out there to use in Japan, like we bought a little purse, we bought some face cloths, we bought an umbrella, that sort of thing, do not take the tax off because you will be using it in Japan. You are not allowed to have that tax-free. And also be aware that if you do get tax-free items, it's very rare, but they may ask to see it at customs when you go back through the airport. So you go through security, there is a customs desk where you have to tell them, I have tax-free items and I'm taking them with you. What we found is most people don't even bother going to that counter. We did, and they just said scan your passport, and then it was all fine and we go through. But occasionally if you scan your passport, it may say check the items, because obviously if you've bought quite a lot, every time you buy a tax-free transaction you hand over your passport and they scan it. So if you've bought quite a lot of tax-free items, they may ask to look at it, and if you've checked it in your luggage, that's where the problem's going to be. It's apparently very, very rare that happens. Just be prepared that if you are going to buy some tax-free items, it's best to keep it in your carry-on so you take it through security with you. Another tip I've got is make sure you're drinking water, a lot of water, more than you think that you're going to need. Have an addiction to melon soda like I did, and that'll work just fine. So yeah, keep hydrated. It's very warm. Go to places early or late. Late afternoon is also a good time, but also be aware that Japan doesn't really open before 10 a.m. and it shuts about 4 or 5 p.m. unless it's like an entertainment establishment that will stay open later. But they have very short, because they're open pretty much every day, they're open for a shorter period of time, so just be aware of that. So we did a lot of stuff of sightseeing before 10 a.m. and then we went and had like an early lunch or something, like a brunch or something. There's not very much for breakfast is what I'm really getting at. So if you are a breakfast person, get a hotel that has a breakfast that you are comfortable eating. There are plenty of hotels that do Western breakfasts if that's what you prefer, or even, you know, a traditional Japanese breakfast. There's a lot of hotels, but just being aware that not a lot of hotels offer that, so you have to pick a hotel that gives you a breakfast option. We stayed at a hotel where it was an optional breakfast and it was £30 a day per person, so just bear in mind, because breakfast isn't really a thing in Japan, it's something that you do at home, that there's not a lot of options, so just bear that in mind. Other than that, you know, research your Pokemon stuff, research any hobby stuff that you're looking for, research it before you go, research the times that it's open, that sort of stuff. Make sure you've got a good itinerary in mind, because by the time you get there, you're just rushed off your feet. Everything is wonderful and you could easily just end up wandering and stumble across things, and that's wonderful. But if you've got places you really, really want to go to, make sure you've got a planned itinerary so that you know where you're going on what days, because it's just so busy and so manic, so make sure you know what you're doing, basically. Other than that, make sure you've got a coin purse or something to hold your coins, because you're going to get a lot of coins, you're going to get a lot of change, and have a great time. If anyone's planning on going to Japan, have a wonderful, wonderful time. And if you've got any questions at all, any things you want me to follow up in another video, leave them in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer them. We spent 2.5 weeks in Japan, and yeah, we really, really want to go back. Stay tuned for another video where you can see in the bags just down there, that is my merch from the Pokemon centres in Japan. I'll do another video with what we managed to pull from there. But yeah, so stay tuned for that video. Other than that, thank you so much for watching to the end. I had a blast in Japan and I hope you had a good time watching this video. Have a wonderful weekend wherever you are, and we'll catch you in the next video. See you later. Bye.